Good morning, bonjour. I'm speaking to you from the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. I want to begin today by acknowledging the anniversary of the crash of Stalker 22 off the coast of Greece. 1 year ago today, we lost 6 Canadian Armed Forces members in the line of duty. They were dedicated to their work, passionate about serving Canada, and beloved by their crew, families, and community. Our thoughts are with the families, loved ones, friends, colleagues, military families, shipmates, fellow aviators, and all Canadians who will forever feel this loss. Every day, Canadian Armed Forces members across the globe risk their lives to support our allies, partners, and friends, and to uphold values that Canadians hold dear: peace, freedom, and respect for the dignity of all people. But it is clear we have not lived up to our responsibility to protect members from misconduct. Over the past months, Canadians have heard from members affected by sexual trauma and sexual misconduct. They've shared their heart-wrenching accounts. To every member in the Canadian Armed Forces, to every person in the Department of National Defence who has been affected by sexual harassment and violence and felt that we were not there to support you, I'm truly sorry. We also know that the current reporting systems do not meet your needs, and too often you do not feel able to report misconduct out of fear of reprisal or retribution. We have heard you, we have listened, and we are taking action. We know we must transform the culture of the defense team to one of dignity and respect, and we need to put in place an external reporting system outside of the chain of command to begin rebuilding confidence. These changes must be comprehensive, and most importantly, it must be lasting. And it must address the systemic challenges at the root of the problem: abuses of power, discrimination, biases, harmful stereotypes. It is why Madam Louise Arbour, former Supreme Court Justice, has agreed to lead an independent external comprehensive review of our institutional policies and culture. Over the coming months, we expect Madam Arbour to provide concrete recommendations on how the Canadian Armed Forces and the Department of National Defence can set up an independent external reporting system for defense team members that meets the needs of those who have been impacted by sexual misconduct. This system needs to be focused on those who have been impacted by misconduct, be responsive to their needs, and be outside of the chain of command and the Department of National Defence. Anything less cannot be accepted. Anything less will not be accepted. Madam Arbour and her team will provide significant direction on how we must evolve to support affected people, and how we can ensure that every incident is handled appropriately. Part of this work also includes looking at the current structures of the Canadian Armed Forces and the Department of National Defence and the Sexual Misconduct Response Centre to see how we can strengthen them to provide greater confidence to those who need support. She will also examine the performance evaluation and promotion system in the Canadian Armed Forces, with a focus on how leaders are selected and trained. This review will also look at the military justice systems, policies, procedures, and practices to see how we can make this system more responsive to the needs of those who have experienced misconduct while holding perpetrators accountable. As Madam Arbour works, and this is important, she will be able to provide interim recommendations that the Department of National Defence and the Canadian Armed Forces commit to acting upon. And as we continue our work with the defence team, we will also create a new organization, the Chief of Professional Conduct and Culture, under the leadership of Lieutenant General Jenny Carrion. This team will be responsible for creating the conditions for cultural transformation by unifying, integrating, and coordinating our ongoing efforts across the Department of National Defence and the Canadian Armed Forces. Their goal is to ensuring that our actions and behaviors reflect the very best parts of our organization and Canadian society. Their efforts will closely align with the work being carried out by the external review, informed by best practices, as well as experts, advocates, and those with lived experience inside and outside of our institution and at all levels. We're dedicated to creating lasting cultural change across the defense team, changing that is enduring, change that meets the needs of those who have experienced sexual misconduct. Throughout this process, we have heard from organizations and individuals that we must do more to support people when they have been harmed. One step is our recognition of members and veterans who have military sexual trauma. And with the $236 million funding from Budget 2021, we will work with Veterans Affairs Canada to develop a peer support network for Canadian Armed Forces members and veterans affected by sexual assault or sexual harassment during their service. We're committed to funding peer-to-peer support online and in person, as well as expanding the reach of the Sexual Misconduct Response Center across the country, as noted in Budget 2021. This program will include both online and in-person group support, as well as an app that will connect members to confidential peer support 24/7 anywhere across the globe. It will be designed and facilitated by professionals, clinicians, and people with lived experience, ensuring the best support is available. This funding also ensures that we will continue our efforts to implement the Declaration of Victim Rights in our military justice system. We're currently consulting with victim groups, and we will soon launch an online questionnaire to solicit anonymous feedback so we can implement the regulations needed for Bill C-77. Taken together, these initiatives are critical to building a true culture of inclusion where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. But these are just the first steps. We know we have to keep moving forward. We know we have more to do. We know we need to regain your trust. We are committed to a lasting change, one that sheds the toxic and outdated values, practices, and policies that have harmed our people. Today is the beginning of that. It is not the end. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Bonjour, good afternoon. Je souhaite tout d'abord commencer aujourd'hui en soulignant l'anniversaire de l'écrasement
Good afternoon. I want to begin today by acknowledging the anniversary of the crash of Stalker 22 off the coast of Greece. 1 year ago today, we lost 6 Canadian Armed Forces members in the line of duty. They were dedicated to their work, passionate about serving Canada, and beloved by their crew, families, and community. Our thoughts are with the families, loved ones, friends, colleagues, military families, shipmates, fellow aviators, and all Canadians who will forever feel this loss. Every day, Canadian Armed Forces members across the globe risk their lives to support our allies, partners, and friends, and to uphold values that Canadians hold dear: peace, freedom, and respect for the dignity of all people. But it is clear we have not lived up to our responsibility to protect members from misconduct. Over the past months, Canadians have heard from members affected by sexual trauma and sexual misconduct. They have shared their heart-wrenching accounts. To every member in the Canadian Armed Forces, to every person in the Department of National Defence who has been affected by sexual harassment and violence and felt that we were not there to support you, I am truly sorry. We also know that the current reporting systems do not meet your needs And too often, you do not feel able to report misconduct out of a fear of reprisal or retribution. We have heard you. We have listened, and we are taking action. We know we must transform the culture of Defence Team to one of dignity and respect. And we need to put in place an external reporting system outside of the chain of command to begin rebuilding confidence. These changes must be comprehensive, and most importantly, they must be lasting. And it must address the systemic challenges at the root of the problem: abuses of power, discrimination, biases, harmful stereotypes. It is why Madame Louise Arbour, former Supreme Court Justice, has agreed to lead an independent, external, comprehensive review of our institutional policies and culture. Over the coming months, we expect Madame Arbour to provide concrete recommendations on how the Canadian Armed Forces and the Department of National Defence can set up an independent external reporting system for Defence Team members that meets the needs of those who have been impacted by sexual misconduct. This system needs to be focused on those who have been impacted by misconduct, and it needs to be responsive to their needs. Any less cannot be accepted and will not be accepted. Madame Arbour and her team will provide significant direction on how we must evolve to support affected people, and how we can ensure that every incident is handled appropriately. Part of this work also includes looking at the current structures of the Canadian Armed Forces and the Department of National Defence and the Sexual Misconduct Response Centre to see how we can strengthen them to provide greater confidence to those who need support. She will also examine performance evaluation and promotion systems in the Canadian Armed Forces with a focus on how leaders are selected and trained. This review will also look at the military justice system's policies, procedures, and practices to see how we can make the system more responsive to the needs to those who have experienced misconduct while holding perpetrators accountable. And as Madame Arbour works, and this is important, she will be able to provide interim recommendations that the Department of National Defence and the Canadian Armed Forces commit to acting upon. And as we continue our work with the Defence Team, we will also create a new organization, the Chief of Professional Conduct and Culture. Under the leadership of Lieutenant General Jenny Carignan, this team will be responsible for creating the conditions for cultural transformation by unifying, integrating, and coordinating our ongoing efforts across the Department of National Defence and the Canadian Armed Forces. Their goal is ensuring that our actions and behaviors reflect the very best parts of our organization and Canadian society. Their efforts will closely align with the work being carried out by the external review. Their work will be informed by best practices, as well as experts, advocates, and those with lived experience inside and outside of our institution and at all levels. We are dedicated to creating lasting culture change across the defense team. Change that is enduring. Change that meets the needs of those who have experienced sexual misconduct. Throughout this process, we have heard from organizations and individuals that we must do more to support people when they've been harmed. One step is our recognition of members and veterans who have military sexual trauma. And with the $236 million funding from Budget 2021, we will work with Veterans Affairs Canada to develop a peer support network for Canadian Armed Forces members and veterans affected by sexual assault or sexual harassment during their service. We are committed to funding peer-to-peer support online and in person, as well as expanding the reach of the Sexual Misconduct Response Centre across the country, as noted in the Budget 2021. This program will include both online and in-person group support, as well as an app that will connect members to confidential peer support 24/7, anywhere across the globe. It will be designed and facilitated by professionals, clinicians, and people with lived experience, ensuring the very best support is available. This funding also ensures that we will continue our efforts to implement the Declaration of Victims' Rights in our military justice system. We're currently consulting with victims groups, and we will soon launch an online questionnaire to solicit anonymous feedback so we can implement the regulations needed for Bill C-77. Taken together, these initiatives are critical to building a true culture of inclusion where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. But these are just the first steps. We know we have to keep moving forward. We know that we have to do more. We know that we need to regain your trust. We are committed to a lasting change, one that sheds the toxic and outdated values, practices, and policies that have harmed our people. Today is the beginning of that. It is not the end. Thank you.
Are we good? Bonjour, good morning. As both the Minister and the Parliamentary Secretary stated, it is important to recognize that 1 year ago today, we lost 6 of our members in a tragic crash during Operation Reassurance. We remember their passion, their professionalism, and their sense of purpose in the work. Our thoughts are with their loved ones, their crew, and all Canadian Armed Forces members who have lost a friend during their service. En ce qui est du sujet d'aujourd'hui au sein des Forces armées canadiennes,
regarding today's topic, we are at an inflection point within the Canadian Armed Forces. We continue to listen and learn and commit ourselves to building a better Canadian Armed Forces for all.
A Canadian Armed Forces that is grounded in respect and dignity, and that fully addresses the interconnected issues of sexual misconduct, racism, abuse of power, and other forms of discrimination. Today is an important step towards change. The new Chief of Professional Conduct and Culture Organization will work to unify our culture change efforts. Under the command of Lieutenant General Carignan, they will harness the strength of all the defense team members who are working diligently to address these systemic issues. Understanding there is no silver bullet for culture change, this restructuring is only part of what will be a wider, comprehensive plan and deliberate effort. Looking outward, we must embrace the independent external comprehensive review and the accountability that it will bring. We have to welcome scrutiny with humility. Notre état stable doit être celui où chaque personne
Our steady state must be one where every person is respected, valued, and can feel safe to contribute to the best of their ability.
This will take our collective efforts, all of us. It comes down to everyone's actions and words, in person or online. It's about the policies we create, the standards we enforce, and how we treat those who have been harmed. It's about living the values we aspire to, day in and day out. To change our culture, we need leadership at every level to be engaged. Ceci est essentiel pour maintenir la confiance.
This is crucial to maintaining trust among teams and therefore operational effectiveness. And it is key to our ability to recruit and retain excellent people from across the country.
As we move forward, we will listen to those who have been affected. We will seek out and listen to external experts. We will learn from our experiences, and we will act to rebuild a trusted, respectful, and effective institution that we and all Canadians can be proud of. Thank you. Merci.
Merci, bonjour. As General Eyre noted, full defense team participation in this effort is crucial. Individual engagement and strong ethical leadership are fundamental in this process. The challenges are many in the fight to prevent systemic misconduct, and they include bureaucracy, inaction, and outdated values that prevent progress and allow affected persons to be ignored. In
many ways, today's announcement is about clearing the road ahead of those structural impediments.
The new L1 in design, functional authority, and accountability will finally have the power to remove roadblocks, eliminate working silos, and resolve confusion. These are key problems that, at minimum, get in the way of converting good work to actual change. At worst, they cause or perpetuate real harm.
What we are announcing today in no way purports to be the solution. There is no one solution.
Additionally, and for the first time, we are addressing this jointly as a CAP and Department of National Defense issue that needs a defense team solution. Failure to do so previously ignored how intertwined the Canadian Armed Forces and the Department of National Defense are at the working, management, and senior leadership levels. This is not just a Canadian Armed Forces or D&D issue, and it never has been. We are also looking beyond the issue of sexualized culture and into how we can eliminate broader abuses and power that manifest themselves in sexual or other forms of misconduct, abuse, or at worst, criminal acts. To those watching, if you're skeptical, that is absolutely understandable. We've been on this road for a very long time, and it can feel like there isn't much to show for it. But I would argue that if the initial steps need to evolve, then we should go back and make that happen. And that is what we are doing right now and will continue to do, openly considering whatever adjustments that are recommended and necessary along the way. Women have been integrated in the forces for more than 30 years, but clearly have not been truly included. This dates back to when I served. It is utterly unacceptable that the isolating and abusive culture persists. With this work, we are positioning ourselves to be a more cohesive and more effective organization, one where we all work in an environment of respect safety, and shared values. So please continue to judge us by our actions, but also be part of that action. Remain engaged in this process, which will benefit all of us and ultimately benefit the safety and security of Canada today, tomorrow, and in the future. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you. Merci. On va maintenant passer à la période des questions avec une question de suivi. We will now begin the question and answer period. As usual, it's one question, one follow-up. Opérateur, c'est à vous.
Thank you, merci. The first question is from Christy Kirkup from the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Hello. Respectfully, Minister, in 2015, another former Supreme Court Justice issued a scathing report on sexual misconduct in the military, and her central call was for a mechanism outside the chain of command. So why, 6 years later, has the government not already set up this outside mechanism?
Thank you very much for the question, and I want to thank Madame Deschamps for her work. And it was a really good start for what we started. But clearly, the work that was done was not enough. We also know that you cannot order away an order change immediately. And this is something that we have learned. And what we are doing here is we have heard from our survivors. We have heard that we have had a system that did not allow them to be heard properly, that one that was trusted. So this is one of the reasons why the steps that we are taking right now with an external reviewer. Madame Arbour will go and look deep within our system to determine what type of independent process is needed that will give confidence to our survivors, a process that they can trust, and where perpetrators can be held to account. That's something that we're committed to, as we had stated, that all options are on the table. We need to learn as an institution, and as we move forward, we want to make sure that whatever we put into place is also not only everlasting, but that can also evolve with as Canadian society evolves as well. And I'd like to see if my colleagues would like to add anything as well.
I think it would be fair to say that Madame Deschamps told us what the problem was, and that is a deep and pervasive and persistent problem, far greater than anybody understood pre her report. And her report was enlightening and it was horrifying, as you note. What we are hoping that we can work with Madame Arbour to develop is an understanding of why that culture persists, how it is allowed to persist, and look at training, policies, programs, uniforms, recruiting, all the elements that go into making a member of the Canadian Armed Forces or a member of the Department of National Defence, and why abuse of authority continues to affect the institution this profoundly.
Follow-up, question de suivi.
Yes, thank you. If I'm a victim who has suffered abuse in the military, why would I trust the sincerity of the words that you're speaking today when you note that the record is one of inaction?
And that is a very good point. Announcements don't make change. Our actions do. And this is what we are committed to doing. We have heard, as I stated, from survivors. We have spoken to many of the experts. It's what we put into place, the actions that we take, and the system that's going to be put into place will be determined by our survivors that come forward, a system that they can trust. But one thing for all the Canadian Armed Forces members and our survivors who are listening, you have an entire leadership, you have a government, and the leadership of the Department of National Defence and the Canadian Armed Forces who are absolutely committed to this. As we stated, we will, all options are on the table. We will not leave any stone unturned, because at the end of the day, making sure that we have an inclusive environment that allows everybody to reach their full potential is the ultimate goal. We cannot rest until we have zero tolerance absolutely achieved. And the actions of the past and what they have seen, we regret that we did not have a system in place that supports them. But we are absolutely committed to doing this. And the work that you will see now is how we're going to build on those actions and regain that trust.
Next question, prochaine question.
Thank you, merci. The next question is from Jacques Galland from the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Hi, Minister. My question is for you, and perhaps Lieutenant General Eyre might like to add as well. We've heard from the military that they've taken action and implemented all 10 of the Deschamps recommendations, yet no one on the outside would agree with that. Madame Deschamps would not agree with that, and the head of the Sexual Misconduct Response Center would not agree with that. So do you think that the military has implemented all 10 of the recommendations, and how confident are you that the military will accept and implement what Justice Arbour recommends?
Before I hand over to General Eyre, I want to clearly state that, first of all, the work that Madame Deschamps has done has provided good guidance for us. Progress has been made, but no, we have not achieved the recommendations fully. More work doesn't need to occur, and we are here today to clearly show this. We clearly know that we do not have a system that survivors trust. This is one of the reasons why Madame Arbour, the external reviewer, will actually do a very thorough review to determine what type of external system is going to be needed. What are the things that we need to look at in terms of our promotional system that's going to make that a lasting change? Will determine the trust that's going to be built. So we do have a lot more work to do. But what you see here is not only the actions that we're about to take, but we have spent months also listening to the survivors, listening to experts, so we get this right. We have a lot more work to do. We are going to be taking action quickly, not waiting for a report. As we stated, that interim recommendations will be made and actions will be taken immediately. But at the same time, we also know that we have current survivors who have been affected by misconduct. They need to be heard. They need to get the right support. And this is why I'm very proud that Lieutenant General Jitten Carry-On is going to be taking on this role, to take all the support mechanisms that we have within the Canadian Armed Forces immediately to look at how we're going to be able to provide that support while Madame Arbour does her work to provide us that confidence with the recommendations for a system that survivors can trust. General Eyre?
Yes, Minister. I'll just add that while there may be some internal assessments that we have implemented the 10 recommendations out of the Deschamps report, implementation is not binary. And regardless, it's clear that we've not achieved the intended results. And so that's why it's important that the independent external comprehensive review has an external look at an external assessment of how we've done the implementation and why has it not achieved that the intended results.
If I may add to this, thank you for your very important question, and specifically about putting survivors first. If I may, let me start by thanking survivors who have come forward, who have taken the time over the many months and years to share their stories with me, with my colleagues, with the Prime Minister. We appreciate you, we hear you, and we will continue to work with you every step of the way. And let me be clear, for far too long, governments have fallen short of the actions needed to be taken. Today, we entrust a globally respected Canadian, a human rights jurist, to bring forward recommendations on creating a system and processes that survivors can trust. And our commitment to you is this: we will put you at the center of this work. You asked us to move forward with establishing and funding a peer support system. We listened. We did that in Budget 2021. You asked us to improve the capacity of the sexual misconduct response centers. We've done that, and we will continue to do that. I think every Canadian, all of us, expect that those who are charged with ensuring our safety are also safe in their efforts to do that work, that they look forward to going to work. And when they come home to their families, they come home feeling accomplished and feel like they were respected in their workplace. We have many, many more steps to take, and we will continue to put survivors at the heart of this work.
Follow-up, question de suivi.
Yeah, my follow-up is to the minister. So the report will likely only be, it sounds like the final report will be released in about a year. So in the meantime, I'm wondering what you would say to survivors and individuals who might face sexual misconduct this year as to where they're supposed to go, what body they should trust, given that there won't be an external body created, it sounds like, for at least a year. And especially when we look at the Deschamps report, which gave you the building blocks to create such a body, and the government and the military never acted on it. So what would you say to survivors this year who are wondering this year where they're supposed to go with their allegations?
Well, that's, thank you very much for the question. That's a really good question. That's something that we have looked at quite deeply. First of all, I want to state that the work that Madame Arbour is going to be doing is not only she'll take the time to get the work right, but as she feels that she has interim recommendations, regardless whether it's a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, that she can bring those recommendations forward and they will be acted upon immediately. But even before this, this is one of the reasons why Lieutenant General Carry-On is going to be leading another effort to where we can immediately look at providing the support to our survivors, as taking a lot of the mechanisms that we have across Department of National Defence and the Canadian Armed Forces to be able to immediately kind of provide the immediate support, but also we're going to be acting upon the recommendation Madame Deschamps has made, for example, on the independence of SMRC. So we are already working on that. So we're not going to wait for a report to come out. We're going to continue to take action from day one. And the work that's currently undertaking by, as I stated from Lieutenant General Carry-On, is going to start that work. What we need to be very mindful of here is the external process that we put into place has to also meet the mark, which it has to regain the trust of the survivors, one that they have faith in, the one that we have a system in place that is independent of the chain of command, independent of the Department of National Defence, that can outlast governments. That's a lasting change that we need, and we owe it to our Canadian Armed Forces members and our survivors who have come forward to get this right. And Deputy Minister or Acting CDS, if you have any other words to add to
that. So, Minister, I would add that the approach we're taking, you can almost see it on two streams. The first stream being the independent external comprehensive review, working on a different timeline, and a more immediate timeline, the second stream, the organization of the chief of professional conduct and culture, immediately forming a core planning team to conduct formal listening sessions, to gather and reconcile all of the ideas, the initiatives that are out there, both from the grassroots level within the military, from victims, from internal experts, from external experts, and then put together a deliberate plan. But that first stream, as the Minister mentioned, will feed on a regular basis into the second stream so that we can continue to make changes as Madame Arbour identifies pieces to change. Now, this is an interim initial step that we're taking with the stand-up of Lieutenant General Carry-On's organization. It's part of our rush to learn and listen, not necessarily a rush to act, because we have to take a very deliberate and comprehensive approach as we go forward.
Just want to see if both or my parliamentary colleagues have anything to add as well.
Yes, I'd just like to add that we have heard incredibly compelling testimonies from women, from survivors, also from male survivors. And these are testimonies that have shaken me personally, and I know they've shaken all of us. And what I'd like to say to those survivors, those who have come forward, but those who have not yet come forward, that we want to provide you the supports. We have heard you. The testimony in the parliamentary committees that have studied this have made very, very clear that we need a solution outside of the chain of command. We need external accountability. We have heard you, and that is exactly what we're doing today. Thank you.
Next question, prochaine question.
Thank you, merci. La prochaine question est de Laurence Martin, Radio-Canada. La parole est à vous.
Bonjour, ici c'est Christian Noël.
Hello, this is Christian Noël, who is going to be asking the question. Thank you for answering them.
English to Minister Sajjan, please. But before I ask my question, I want to know, did you read the Deschamps report?
Yes, not only have I read the report, I've been briefed on it. I mean, we've been acting on the recommendations.
Okay. No,
more importantly,
I just wanted to know if you had actually read the report. That was not my question. My question is, you know then that the Deschamps report is asking for an external mechanism to deal with those complaints. Why don't you just go ahead and do that? Why do you need another report?
No, it's a very, very good point there. But we can't just create an external system that we're looking at. We want to be extremely bold in our way forward. When it comes to an external system that we're going to be put into place, it's going to be independent of the military, independent of the Department of National Defence. And we need to make sure that we get the right mechanisms in place and the proper process in place to get this right. Making a change does not mean we're going to create the results. And we have clearly seen that. What we want to do here is get the right recommendations conducted thoroughly by somebody who has a tremendous experience to get this right. When we put our people first in our defense policy, it's easy to say things, but it's more difficult to take the right actions. And more importantly, when you take the actions, the last thing you want to do is just say, hey, pat yourselves on the back. We made an announcement. We said this, and it's going to happen. That's clearly in our past. That has not happened. We need to be able to measure our results. This is what today is about, is making sure that we put a credible pathway forward that can move very quickly, but credibly, that can lead to lasting change. And that's what we're committed to.
Next question, prochaine question.
No, I'm sorry. I still have my follow-up. Thank you. You say, Minister Sajjan, that you want to make sure that you restore the trust of the survivors. You have the Deschamps report for 5 years, and you're waiting until you are in a political firestorm to announce that you're going to act on it. Some people are going to say that you are trying to protect yourself more than protecting the victims. What would you have to say to that?
Thank you very much for the question. Let me make it very clear to you. When somebody serves their country, put their lives on the line, put the writes the check of unlimited liability, I take that very seriously. When we formed our defense policy, and we heard from Canadians what the focus should be in our defense policy, they told us it should be focused on looking after our people. We listened, and we put them number one in our defense policy. Chapter number one. We put into place the right policies in place. But clearly, when it comes to implementations, when it comes to recommendations, even from the Deschamps report, from the implementations, We thought we were going down a path that was creating that better change. It clearly has not worked. What we're doing here is sticking to that core principle. And that's something that I've always believed in. That's something when I also served, at the same time, knowing what somebody goes through. That's what I always remain focused on, is looking after our people. Is regardless of what situation might be going on around us, my number one priority of our government has been to look after our people. That's why we put our people as chapter number 1 in our defense policy. That's why we said that GBA plus analysis has to be in everything that we do. That's why we put support mechanisms in place. We changed policies early on, looking at things. What were the barriers for women to join the Canadian Armed Forces? What were the barriers when it came to retention? There were things like in our policies that we had, for example, where when a female service member had go on maternity leave, they had to, if they had a 5-year contract, they had to serve the number of months they were on maternity leave in the contract. So it wasn't just 5 years; they had to go possibly 6 years if they had the first child. We changed those policies. Now, what I'm trying to say here is, I'm not saying that we have it right. We clearly don't. But what I'm saying here is that our number one priority is focused on our people, and it'll always be that. And that's what today is about, is that we're listening to our survivors, listening to what the changes that are needed, knowing that we have lost the faith and trust of our survivors, and putting a mechanism in place that can move forward. And that's what we'll always do. And we need to have a process that's flexible enough that'll always change with our society and outlast governments as well. Thank you.
Next question. Prochaine question.
Next question is from Mercedes Stevenson from Global News. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for taking my question today. Minister Sajjan, my first question is for you. You keep saying you need time to figure out how to set up this independent reporting process. With all due respect, Minister, I remember the 2015 press conference about the Deschamps report, where we discussed exactly the same things that we are discussing today about the need for external reporting. Your government has had 6 years to set up external reporting. I understand wanting to look further into the issues with Madame Arbour, but why have you not simply announced a mechanism that will report to Parliament, which has been advised by multiple experts, by multiple victims, and there has already been extensive research done into this? I mean, this is not the first time your government has become aware of that recommendation.
No, thank you very much for that question, Mercedes. We have listened to when it comes to the recommendations that need to be made for reporting to be external. Even though we have certain processes in place, those processes have not worked. And what this is about, this is not just about doing another review. This is about doing taking a much more bolder step that we have done in the past. A step that has a mechanism in place, as I stated, that will be completely independent of the military, having a person or a body that's going to be in place that's not going to be military, that can take not only the quick action, but also to be able to hold perpetrators to account, to take a look at all those type of issues. That's something that we owe to our people. Making an announcement on something to say that's going to happen is not going to just achieve the results. What we're trying to do here is get it right. We're also taking steps immediately to provide the immediate support for the survivors who are coming forward. But we need to get this right. This is not about just doing another review. This is about taking steps very, very quickly. As the interim recommendations are made, they'll be acted upon.
Follow-up, question suivie.
Thank you. My follow-up question is for General Carignan, because we actually haven't heard from General Carignan, even though she's taking on this important role. General Carignan, what power will you have to take action? What ability will you have to address this? And how do you feel about being given this role instead of Army Commander?
First of all, I have to say that I'm privilege to have been elected for this task because I think it's going to have an effect on the overall defense team.
Sorry for the interruption. Unfortunately, we cannot hear.
Making some progress into that field. Now, I would set my mandate within the prevention space, which is create the conditions for inclusive climate and have folks feel comfortable working in their environment. So this is where my mandate is set within the space that I have right now. What powers that will be determined in the next few weeks as we are confirming and working a clear mandate, but that will be firmly determined in the next few weeks.
Next question. Prochaine question.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from Libertium from the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you for taking our questions today. I wanted to ask, in all of the documents that I've seen, Madame Arbour, one of her main tasks will be looking at an external reporting system. One of the things that advocates and others have been calling for, however, is an external accountability or oversight body, something that will actually be able to press the military and hold them to account. Why is that not part of her main mandate, or will it be?
Oh, I can assure you that, Lee, that within the scope of Madame Arbour's work, this is where she can go much broader to take a look at. Our goal is to make sure that we have a system that survivors can trust. So yes, absolutely, she can go further. In fact, actually, we purposely have made the scope of her work to be broad as possible so that she has the flexibility to dig deep enough wherever it's needed. To whatever it takes to create that confidence is where Madame Arbour can go. And so, yes, she has the ability to look there, but anywhere she feels also then she needs to go, she has the authority to do so.
As a follow-up, why didn't you spell that out in all of the documents and all of the terms of reference and all of the materials that have been provided and the announcement around this? Why wasn't that spelled out? Because that has been identified as a key issue, the idea of such a thing as an inspector general or something like that. And as kind of double barrel, why not allow Madame Arbour the power to order some type of changes as opposed to reporting through you and you report it, you ordering implementation? Why have that kind of that reporting process, if you will?
We want to make sure that Madame Arbour had the ability to conduct a review extremely thoroughly, to look at not just the external reporting process, but go even further to look at the systemic issues that are currently in place, and ultimately, based on those recommendations, will require possible changes. And then we also have to be very mindfully that there are certain authorities of where those changes occur. It could even be legislation. It could be regulation. And that is why, based on our recommendations, making sure that they go to the right peoples to get those changes. That's what this is about. We want to make sure that those changes are actually done. So she has the ability to go wide and deep as possible. As I stated, the goal is to making sure that we have a system independent of the chain of command and the military, so that it can regain the trust of survivors to come forward.
Next question. Prochaine question.
Thank you, merci. The next question is from Christopher Nardi from the National Post. Please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm curious, you talk about your commitment to enact all the recommendations or the recommendations that might come forth from this review, including an external review mechanism. But what is your timeline? What is your timeline? As soon as those recommendations come out, when will you be able to tell victims or potential future victims that this is when the new system will be in place? This is when changes, you will begin to see them.
Thank you very much for the question. We want to move as quickly as possible so that we can put a process in place that our survivors can trust and have faith in. Madam Arbour has the ability to be able to come up with any recommendations that she feels that needs to be acted upon immediately. Whether it takes a month, 2 months, we will act on it. This is one of the reasons why we didn't want to put into place where we're waiting for a report. Also, the organization that Lieutenant General Carignan will be leading is also going to provide the base to be able to where those implementation can be done very, very quickly as well. So we're putting a system in place that we can move as quickly as possible, but we do want to get this right. And because ultimately, whatever system that we have has to, as I stated, regain that level of trust, but also it has to outlast governments as well. And I'd just like to pass it off to the DM or the acting CDS if they have anything further to add to that.
I could start and then turn it over to General Eyre. I think that what we're seeing is that General Carignan will have the ability to take parts of the organization that are siloed, don't speak to each other, and allow both perpetrators and victims to slip through the cracks, amalgamate them under one leadership, one view, and she'll be able to take action. And so we know that somebody can be a persistent predator and it not reflected in their performance reviews because the discipline system potentially doesn't talk to other parts of the organization. We're seeing evidence of that kind of behavior. General Carignan will be responsible for bringing those systems together. So internal change immediately to help have a global view of individuals, of units, and of behavior and culture. So I think that's step one. Madame Arbour will be reporting to us as she sees things that require action. An external reporting system is a complex issue. It is not a matter of taking existing structures and just moving them to report to Parliament. The Ombudsman has said he can't investigate sexual misconduct. Perhaps he should be able to do that. Those are the kinds of things that we need to hear so that when we make the move, we're not only doing little bits of the organization or just modifying what exists. We need complete change. We need new authorities. We need a different approach to investigation. And we're talking a lot about reporting. That's after the fact. We're really hoping that some of the work that General Carignan will lead will be preventative and stop the behavior in the first place. And then we won't have to have as much emphasis on the aftermath and the effects on human beings. So there's no simple answer, and it may seem that we're moving too slowly, and we accept that the Deschamps report was not implemented as intended by its author. We're not going to interpret the report this time. We're going to implement it.
So I will just add to what the Deputy Minister said there, and I'll say up front, I understand their skepticism, and I'll say that restructuring is not a panacea for the challenges that we face. What we need is sustained effort to make the changes. But the restructure we're putting in place and the functional authorities we're going to give Lieutenant General Carignan are going to be a key aspect of moving forward. Functional authorities to take a look at training and revamping our training system, looking at how we train leaders to ensure that our leadership is more embraces inclusive leadership and the concepts that go along with that, to better understand the use and the abuse of power, taking a look at how our career management system works or doesn't work and directing changes there, looking at leader selection and giving subordinates more of a voice in leader selection so that we can ensure that we don't have toxic leaders rising to the top. So over the course of the next few weeks, we're going to be developing the authorities, the responsibilities, and the accountabilities for Lieutenant General Carignan. So she has those clear arcs, those clear authorities to be able to direct change across the institution.
Follow-up, question suivie.
You also mentioned in your mention of this new review that Justice Arbour will be looking at the military justice system. And I'm curious, does that mean that you're not satisfied with the way that the military justice system has addressed military sexual misconduct in the military, particularly considering the fiasco of the Mario Dutil case collapsing last year, and that involved allegations of inappropriate relationship?
Well, clearly, for us, for this to have the credibility for the work that Madame Arbour is going to be doing, we obviously have to look at the military justice system to hold perpetrators to account. We need to make sure that the military justice system is functioning to support our survivors who are coming forward. And we also have Justice Fish conducting a military justice review, but that's mandated under the National Defence Act. What Madame Arbour is going to be doing is focused on survivors who are coming forward, to making sure that they can be heard through that. If there is misconduct, making sure that the survivors get the appropriate legal advice, know the exact process that needs to be done to hold perpetrators to account. So this is one of the reasons why we need to make sure it's broad enough for the work that Madame Arbour is doing, so we get that change. And having someone with her expertise and experience to take a look at this will be very important, given that the work that she did in the past of holding war criminals to account. And so we want to make sure that we gave her enough flexibility to achieve this. Just also want to see if my parliamentary colleagues want to add anything to this.
Yes, thank you very much. We know that justice systems, whether they're civilian or military, have to evolve over time. We're looking forward to Justice Fish's report, and also, in fact, the next report of the Defence Committee, the next study is on military justice. We know that one of the barriers that the survivors have talked about is the military justice system. So we need to make sure that it is evolving with the times and make sure that it is truly responsive so that there is no impunity. And Madame Arbour is in an excellent position. I lived and worked in the former Yugoslavia, and she is the reason that rape is a war crime. And she has done a tremendous work in terms of impunity, in terms of holding perpetrators accountable, and that is exactly the lens through which we want her to look at this, at the same time that we have Justice Fish's report and hopefully the committee's report as well.
Next question. Prochaine question.
Thank you. The next question is from Kevin Gallagher from CTV National News. Please go ahead.
Hello, thanks for taking my question. I just want to go back to timelines. General Carignan said that her office will kind of be up and running, it seemed, in the next few weeks. We're expecting a report from Madame Arbour in more than a year. I've heard that there's going to be some updates throughout that process with recommendations. But then there's the peer-to-peer line that's open 24/7. You can call and go online. How's that going to be staffed, and when's that going to be up and running for victims who are seeking support now? And who's going to be at the other end of the phone? Is it another soldier? I'm just wondering how you're going to have people to staff that 24/7.
No, that's a very good question. And we're not looking at creating a sequence here. What we're trying to do here is put as much support as possible and get not only the institutions, but the support systems up and running as quickly as possible. And we obviously want to get this right. But one thing I can assure you, the survivors that we have listened to and the advocates have asked for this, that this would something that is absolutely needed. So I can't give you an actual sequencing because we don't want a sequence. What we want to do is put the resources in the right place to move as quickly as possible, but want to make sure that we do this well. DM, do you have anything further to add on to this for support possibly to SMRC?
Thank you, Minister. The SMRC now provides 24/7 support and response to military members who call in. One of the new programs that we're adding, or expansion of programs that is going to happen, is that they'll be able to accept calls from veterans as well as civilian members. They do that now. They don't turn anybody down, but this will be formally in their mandate. We're working with Veterans Affairs Canada, the CAF Transition Group, and the SMRC to develop, and survivors, it's just 700 in particular, who's really courageous and honest and persistent founders and members have pushed for this. And so they're to be commended and given the credit for it. The peer-to-peer support we will develop with those interested parties who can give us advice on how it should be staffed. There is an opportunity to bring in clinicians, professionals, to be part of that support network, but it's peer-to-peer. So it's people who've had lived experiences. We'll be able to give you an update in a couple of weeks about how that work is proceeding and when the program will be truly up and running.
Follow-up, question de suivi.
So my follow is for Minister Sajjan. You said today that the implementation of recommendations that came out of the Deschamps report has been a failure. You've said you failed. When did you know that? What brought on this change now to bring in Madame Arbour to rethink this process?
What the work that was done on the recommendation of Madame Deschamps' recommendations, even though progress has been made, but clearly, when the survivors who have come forward, if you've heard in the recent months, clearly has shown that we have a lot more work to do, and this is one of the reasons why we are taking the bold actions that we need to. And I want to commend the survivors who have come forward, and we regret that they had to go through this where they didn't have faith in the system. This clearly showed that we did not have a proper system in place that was truly independent, free from intimidation and reprisal. And that's what we're trying to focus on right now, is to put a system in place, take a bold step, look at what our allies are doing, and look at going even further. But we need to make sure that we get this right. We need to have the proper processes in place that's based on our laws, that's based on supporting our survivors who are coming forward. And it's so important that we get this piece right, because it's only through a proper mechanism process that and policies that you have in place that it can that can be truly lasting. So that's what we're focused on, and we know that we have a lot more work to do, but we're going to move as quickly as possible here to get this right. And if any of my
Kevin, thank you for your question. This issue, gender-based violence in the military, in workplaces, it's a complex issue. And it is clear that we have much more to do to ensure that survivors feel safe, that we prevent the behavior from happening in the first place. And what you're hearing today and what you saw with the budget investments, the ongoing conversations we're having with survivors, I hope they see that we're taking this seriously, that we're taking serious action, and we're going to include them in this work every step of the way forward. And the goal here is an inclusive workplace, a smart workplace with strong teams in place. And I believe that this institution is strong enough for the change and the work ahead.
Last question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
If I may add some comments to that, not only have we heard of sexual harassment and discrimination, we've also heard of racial discrimination that has come forward, and there have been some victims who have not found a real sense of justice. And part of justice is not just having a resolution to one's case, but it's a real feeling that the issue is being dealt with seriously and independently. And this is what today's announcement is about. It's a path forward to do better than what we've done in the past. And that will make all the difference.
Thank you. Merci. Last question. Dernière question.
The last question is from Ashley Burke from CBC National News. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my question as well. This is for Lieutenant General Jenny Carillon. Have you experienced or witnessed any inappropriate conduct during your time in the military?
Again, I've been growing military within the culture of the military, and over the years, I have dealt with various cases.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the audio is too low.
Each individual case, they are all very different from one to the other. Now, looking forward as to what we need to do, we need to create the conditions where folks, everybody feel welcome coming into work. And again, changing a culture is a wide term, but in concrete ways, what we have to look at is how we build leaders, how we train, how we recruit. We have to specifically look at these particular issues which create the culture. Leaders create culture and environments around them. And this is what we need to do at this point in time. We have learned a lot from Operation Honor. And the next step now consists in moving into addressing culture and give this the right tone with the right values and actually do what we say.
And sorry, just before I ask my follow-up question, I think the operator might have cut off the beginning part of your question, or the microphone wasn't working for that. Can you just repeat just the very beginning of what you said about your experiencing dealing with cases?
I have dealt with various cases on a wide spectrum. And again, each case is very, very different from one another. And we have various tools at our disposal to look after each case. So we just have to make sure that we treat each person according to their desire and how they want to address the particular issue.
And this question was for the Deputy Minister. There are cases where individuals, they don't trust military police to investigate in their cases and have dealt with, in particular, I'm thinking of one person, Stephanie Vio, who alleges that she was raped by someone in military police and has accusations also against a high-level military personnel of rape as well that he denies. She wants civilian police to investigate her case, and she's really pushing for that. Is that something that you will consider in that case? It would set a precedent moving forward. Do you have any concerns with that? Could others as well go to civilian police too?
I think that, thank you for the question, and it's certainly not my area of expertise. I would say that historical cases are complex, and the Provost Marshal is working diligently to understand what can be done to support Ms. Vio as she goes forward in pursuing her situation. What we want to do is be able to do what is right so that justice can be served. What that looks like is under investigation right now.
That concludes today's press conference. Thank you very much. Bonne journée. Merci beaucoup.